Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We haven't covered it. We need to. Earlier this week, grand jury indicting Mark and Patricia Mcclaskey on charges of exhibiting guns at protesters in that June incident in front of their homes. Added a charge of tampering with evidence for both Mcclaskeys as well. Mark Mcclaskey, this trial attorney, remember they spoke at the RNC too. They broke down our gate. They trespassed on our property. Not a single one of those people are now charged with anything. We're charged with felonies that could cost us 4 years of our lives and our law license. What you're witnessing here is just an opportunity for the government, the leftist Democrat government of the city of St. Louis, to persecute us for doing no more than exercising our Second Amendment rights. We have a real issue right now, not just in terms of the tolerance for lawlessness by the left, but also the law enforcement against those who would protect themselves when the protection they pay for through their taxes is told to stand down. That's on the ballot on November 3rd. And you don't have to like the Mcclaskeys to recognize the importance of that case. I don't like the Mcclaskeys from everything I know about them because I'm not particularly disposed to litigious trial lawyers. But they're getting mugged by the reality of their erstwhile friends that their profession otherwise finances, aren't they? But it doesn't mean they should. I mean, that's why we have constitutional rights. They're for everybody, not just people you like. That's the only way you have a civil society. And we don't increasingly now, do we? Again, this week in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, people didn't like a decision made by a Democrat Milwaukee County DA, and they randomly pick houses in that suburban community to vandalize.
And tell people to get out of their houses. We want to take over.
For more on this, the choice between chaos and the rule of law, the choice between the predator and the law-abiding. We're pleased to be joined by Randy Petersen, senior researcher at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, retired law enforcement officer with the Bloomingdale, Illinois Police Department, former director of the Tarrant County College District Criminal Justice Training Center in Texas. Randy, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, thank you for having me. Morning.
So you retired from Bloomingdale Police and you moved to Texas, did you? Boy, that's an unusual story.
I think that's becoming a pretty non-interesting story. It's happening.
It really is. Imagine that.
How did that happen?
You penned a piece in the American Conservative about this choice before us on Election Day. I mean, really every day, particularly with our local governments that is closest to us and we can have the most influence on. That should not necessitate an election to make that choice. But in addition to that, of course, it's on the ballot, up and down the ballot on November 3rd.
Yeah, we definitely have a choice coming up, and I think the scary part, you pointed out the Mcclaskey incident. When you think about that, the left, no one 6 months ago, no one was seriously talking or discussing about defunding the police, or in many circumstances in left circles, actually abolishing the police. That was a non-starter issue, and now it's becoming almost mainstream through, at least on that side of the table. There's not a lot of middle ground there, and when you see with the Mcclaskeys, that's what society looks like when you don't have police. They have to police themselves, and now they tried to take that right away from them. Right, they've indicted them for doing that. There was no police there to defend them. They took minimal steps to defend themselves. Right, I mean, it was a display of firearms. It wasn't. They didn't shoot at anybody. And I mean, I think that gives you all you need to know about what the left's plans are. It's an anarchist sort of a mentality. It's not. They don't believe in the institutions of our government.
There's no question about it. I mean, I referenced this piece earlier in the week, but it bears repeating because this is somebody who's been mainstreamed by the Democrat Socialist Party. Angela Davis, who's a communist, not dissimilar to many intellects and academics that are affiliated with the Democrat Socialist Party. And she penned a piece in Medium, Why Arguments Against Abolition Inevitably Fail. She's talking about arguments against abolishing the police. There are no good arguments against abolishing the police. Oh, and by the way, it's not just police. They're already moving down the line, challenging the left to catch up with them, the intellectual leaders of this poisonous ideology. Both policing, this is what she writes, both policing and punishment. So state's attorney's offices, prison system, both policing and punishment are firmly rooted in racism, attempts to control indigenous, Black, and Latino populations following colonization and slavery, as well as Asian populations after the Chinese Exclusion Act and the World War II incarceration of Japanese Americans. Those are the roots of modern-day policing and punishment, all of those sorry episodes in American history.
And I think we saw that contrast displayed in Tuesday night's debate. Vice President Pence soundly rejected the idea that America's policing institutions are fundamentally racist, and I was glad to hear him refute that argument, which I thought was fantastic. But the idea of tearing down the police is, as part of that anarchist or, as you said, communist movement, right? The role of the police is to defend our rights. That's really the role of government in a limited government conservative sense. They're the last line of defense there. If you get rid of them, the anarchists have, they have the room to destroy, as it's been said before, right? So removing the police as defenders is a huge problem. Defunding them is the first step towards that, right? Because you'll make them incompetent through minimizing their training and not being able to hire the best and brightest. All of those things will occur. So you can break it down slowly or tear it down quickly, but either way, that's their goal.
And now here in Illinois, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Lightfoot are teaming up. They want police officers to get a license, and they want to abolish no-knock warrants.
Yeah, obviously monitoring the use of no-knock warrants is important because there's a reason that the knock and announce system is there. But how would you like to know that you're going in to do, let's say, a search warrant execution, arrest warrant execution on a possible ISIS member that's a bomb maker, and you have to knock on the door and announce your presence before you go in there? Not a lot of people are going to sign up for that.
And what about getting a license to be a police officer or a Illinois state trooper?
The licensing thing kind of would shift the ability of the state to determine who is and who is not a police officer, and that can make it more of a political issue. Currently in Illinois, each department has its own fire and police commission. They determine who they're going to hire, who they're going to fire, and the state regulates their training and their certification as having completed training. So moving to a licensing thing would give the state a lot more power over its police, and that can be, depending on how it's wielded, a good or bad thing.
Do you believe Joe Biden when he said during the debate last week that he didn't quite say that the police are not structurally racist, but he did talk about, sort of generally gave a sop to police by saying, yes, most police are good. There's some bad police, and we have to reimagine police. So he tried to middle the issue essentially by using the language of the left, but giving himself some room so he doesn't sound as crazy as Angela Davis.
Right. That's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to thread that needle, and the term reimagining policing sounds kind of warm and fuzzy depending on who it's coming from, and if you don't realize where it's originated on the left, which is in the abolishing circles, right? That's what reimagining policing looks like, is getting rid of the police as we know it. So he said both sides of the issue, I guess, which is not unusual.
This is important because of the Orwellian newspeak that the left engages in. When they say reimagine police, I mean, they're saying the same thing Angela Davis is saying. And let me tell you what she said, and again in this piece. Just as we hear calls today for more humane policing, people at the time then called for a more humane slavery. That's the comparison she makes. So for people who are saying, Tim Scott, for example, his legislation to incentivize reform at the federal level to incentivize police reforms at the local level, some of the other discussions underway in individual departments about the topics that are being discussed nationally, including no-knock warrants and so forth. That's just calling for a more humane form of slavery, according to Angela Davis. So when people say reimagine, they are talking about defund. They are talking about social workers either right away or over time displacing police. That they are talking about what Angela Davis is talking about it. They're just not talking about it in the stark terms that she is.
That's exactly right. The idea of reimagining policing is to change it completely. It's not to improve it, right? As conservatives, we take incremental steps to improve fundamental institutions. We don't take drastic steps and tear down longstanding institutions like that. That's their goal, is to completely change it and into something that we wouldn't recognize. And I think you pointed out some of the ideas are, social workers responding, and if that doesn't make you feel unsafe, in the middle of a robbery, the idea that 2 or 3 social workers might come through the door to help you, that's
I'm here. Let's
we're
talk.
Here.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If I was a social worker, I wouldn't be volunteering for that duty.
Or I'd be wearing a bulletproof vest.
Honestly, I mean, it's really just breathtaking. Randy Petersen, senior researcher at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, retired law enforcement officer from Bloomingdale, Illinois Police Department, and former director of the Tarrant County College District Criminal Justice Training Center in the Republic of Texas. Randy Petersen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
You too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer.